So this is going to be a video on like second block tips and tricks as of the request from this comment. So I'm just going to go over like some things that I do during second block and some things that you should do too. If I said that I do all of these things 100% of the time, I'd be lying, but I try to do it whenever I can, but I don't always remember. So this isn't like you don't have to do everything I tell you 100% of the time, but you should know how to do them whenever the case arises. So the first thing I want to talk about is recognizing this as a pair. So you may be used to just, seeing like these as pairs during second block, but you've got to know that this is also a pair as well, and you should use that to your advantage. So I would usually start by solving this edge first, but since this is already solved, I'm going to solve the yellow-green edge first, which is right here. So instead of like solving this and going down, I would instead do a U like that to solve here, and then I could pair it up like this, and that makes a little square. So make sure you're watching out for pairs that may not necessarily look like these ones, but they still are pairs and you should still be using them. In my solves, it's not too often that something like that happens, but just good to know how to do it. So next I want to talk about using R moves and R wide moves to your advantage. So you're not going to mess up like any middle layers, so make sure you're using like your R wides and R's at the appropriate times. So just an example, I have this pair in the back and then this pair which is matched up, so that's not good, but I want to try and break that apart. So I could just use R moves to insert it, but then this pair is stuck together and I'm just going to have to use M moves to separate it. But if instead, whenever I bring up the slot to put it in, and then I use, instead of an R move to bring it down, if I do an R wide, that's going to separate the edge, so I can go right into a U2 and an M2 to solve this pair quicker. Here's another example. I have a pair up front, and then my next two pieces are here, and my edge is already solved. So I could just simply insert this, and then I'd have to go into solving the next pair. But instead, if whenever I bring it down I use an R wide move, I will have already brought this edge down, so I can go right into setting it up and solving it. And then just bridging off of that idea, you can actually use this also to help during your LSE step. So you may be familiar with the idea of, I finish my second block, and then I go ahead to do CMLL, and I see that my top edge isn't white or yellow. So during one of the R moves, I use a wide move to actually solve that center. Now this is great, but sometimes you won't always get a CMLL case that has an R move that you can use as a wide move instead. So let's say I insert this and I get this case. So with the alg I know, I'm not going to be able to use an R move to actually fix my centers. So that's why it's in your best interest to, if you can, fix your centers during second block, because you don't know whether or not you'll be able to do it during CMLL. So that's just like a good thing to get in the habit of doing, is fixing your centers as early in the solve as possible. So if I do this, I can fix my centers, because if you look, I'm never going to have a chance to do an R move where I'm not going to be, breaking apart these pieces here. So that'll just make your LSE one move faster. It is only one move, so it's not too big of a deal, but it is a good thing to get in the habit of doing. Now I'm going to talk about kind of like process of elimination and finding your edges. So I'm going to insert my last second block pair. At the angle I'm seeing, I can find my corner that's going to go here, but I don't see the edge. So where is it? Well, I can do one of two things. I can either have look ahead, where as I insert it, I would have saw this is the edge I needed, or if I didn't have good look ahead, I could use process of elimination. So I know there's only going to be 4 red edges on the cube, and I can see all 4 right now. This one I know won't be the one I need because it's a part of the first block, and these 2 aren't it because they have white and yellow, and that's just not the edge I want. So even though I can't see this other side of the sticker, I know that that edge is the edge I want, and I don't even have to look at it. And then I can just solve it. Obviously, you would want to use look ahead over this process of elimination method, but it is still good to keep in mind that that is something you can do if you weren't looking ahead far enough, or you just couldn't find something in time. So the last thing I want to talk about, and maybe like the most important thing on here, is finding the balance between look ahead and TPS. Now this can go for your entire solve, but I think the two biggest steps here are second block and LSC. So first block, you have inspection, so you kind of get like a boost ahead in that step. CMLL is just pure recognition, but for second block and LSC, you want to be able to be turning fast enough that you're getting fast times, but also slow enough that you can see far enough ahead in the solve. And while this sounds simple, it's actually, at least I have found, pretty hard to do. The only time I feel like I get this really correct is during a competition, when I'm purely in the zone and purely focused. Whenever I'm at home, I'm just kind of, solving away, not really paying attention. And I often get slower times than in competition because I don't really know what's the correct rate that I should be turning at, and that's probably one of my weakest points in my solves right now. I feel like if I could master this technique, I would definitely drop my times by a second, maybe two. It's something that I'm currently working on to do better at, and I just want to tell you a little bit about it so you can work on it too. So if we imagine like a all right, so now I'm gonna redo my drawing because I have a little bit thicker piece of paper now. So I'm gonna draw like a scale or a balance or whatever it's called, and I've got like a basket here, This will be TPS. That's an R. TPS, and this will be look ahead. So I'm gonna use like my analogies with cubes, and these will represent like different weights or different levels of each of these like ideas. So it's important to note that this scale will not always be balanced. Sometimes one side will be a little bit lighter, will be a little bit heavier, and like in the method CFOP, you want to have a higher TPS, and with higher TPS you sacrifice some look ahead. So like a CFOP solver might put more weight on their TPS side and less weight on the look ahead side, and they'll have an imbalanced scale, but it still works for the method they're using. But with RU, we kind of switch it the other way around. We want a slower TPS for more look ahead. Now what you don't want to do is you don't want to put all your weight on TPS and barely any weight on look ahead. That's a bad balance. Then you have it way leading to the right, and that is not good. But at the same time, having just a perfectly even balance isn't always the right solution either. And really, whatever balance you want is something that you need to discover. Me personally, I think I like, the standard I just gave, which is the 4x4 and the 2x2, leaning more towards look ahead, less towards TPS. But whenever I'm not fully paying attention to my solves, it's very easy for me to switch these two around, and then I get slower times. So if I had to take a guess, I would say that most cubers probably have like their weights like this, more leaning towards the TPS side and less towards look ahead because, well, I'm just going to say it like it is. It's fun to turn fast. Like, whenever I go to competitions and I'm seeing all these CFOP solvers like absolutely destroying their fingers with TPS, it makes me want to turn a lot faster, and I get it. It's fun and exciting, but especially if you're a RU user watching this, because I'm assuming that you are, because it's about second block, it's very important to maintain that uneven balance, at least for me personally. Maybe for you, you have an evenly balanced scale, or if you can make higher TPS work, then go ahead. But I'd say for the most part, I think that you would want a slower TPS and more look ahead. So what is like a good balance? What's a good speed? I'm going to show you my 9-second single that I got at like Pittsburgh Spring, I think it was called. This is a good example of a slow turning solve that ended up being a sub 10. Now I know sub 10 is not that impressive, but I do average at home about 13 seconds, and getting a sub 10 in competition, that's like a pretty good achievement, I guess, for a 13-second solver. But that's because during a competition, I'm able to better focus on maintaining this balance. And in that solve, I think I especially showed that by adding more to my look ahead than I did to my TPS. So just watch this solve, get a feel for how fast I'm turning, do do know that there was luck that went into this solve because it was sub 10, but take a look at that and see how fast I'm turning the cube.
10.4. Ready? PR. PR. Official PR. 8 seconds.
So that's all I got for this video. To the person who requested this, I hope that helped a little bit. I know I kind of went on like a theoretic like ramble at the end, but if what I just said went in one ear and went out the other, just pay attention to the first half of this video where I actually give you second block tips. That should help. But thanks for watching, and yeah, just thanks for watching, I guess. I don't know.